Hello, in this video I want to talk about the aging narcissist or the aging emotional abuser. Are they like a fine cheese? Do they get better with age? Or are they like milk and go sour? Hello, my name's Elizabeth Goddard from Revive Your Soul. On this channel I talk about healing from emotional abuse, untangling from those invisible chains that are keeping you trapped, keeping you in victim mode, unable to move on. If you're new to this channel, please don't forget to like and share and subscribe if you can, and if you hit the notification bell you'll be updated each time I upload a video. And if you're returning, welcome back and thank you, and a huge thank you to all of the new subscribers to my channel. It's amazing, thank you so much. So my question is, what happens to the narcissist or the emotional abuser when they get older? Are they cheese or milk? Do they mature or do they go sour? I'll ask you at this point to drop your guess in the comments below and let's see if you're right. And for the purpose of this video, I'm going to keep it simple and just talking about overt and covert as examples. And this is my conclusion drawn from the research that I've done that I could find on this subject. Narcissism. I'm just going to look at two types of narcissism. The grandiose narcissist, where we see the characteristics of them being bold, confident, having a superficial charm, being resistant to criticism, callous and unemotional. And then there's the other side of the coin, the vulnerable narcissist, or the covert narcissist, which is characterized by the shame and anger, aggression, hypersensitivity, a tendency to be introverted, they're a bit defensive, they're avoidant, anxious, depressed, socially awkward and shy. And with the overt, they have relied on their charms and maybe their brains and money for their supply. And the covert have happily hidden themselves away. Well, happily is used quite loosely. Not interested in any other reality but their own, hiding behind their false sense, avoiding emotions and avoiding responsibility. Narcissists are not really interested in anybody else's reality but their own, and they hide away behind their false self. So when they get older, do they grow into the extreme versions of themselves? They are desperate, and their pathetic lies and manipulative behaviour continues because they're afraid their mask will drop. They become isolated because their supply dries up. Do their games ever stop? They seem to be invincible and they are not accountable for their actions. And they're quite predictable when you start to understand these patterns. They believe that they're entitled to do what they want, prioritise their needs over everybody else's. They know they've got a family to look after, but they still hold the belief that they should be at the top of your list. After all, you only have children. In their eyes, they're worth nothing, unless of course the child is providing them with attention. As they get older, they do become withdrawn, depressed and isolated. They might spend their days alone, miserable, blaming others. They can't sustain long-term healthy relationships. They become critical, or even more critical. They get bored. They're never happy with what they have. Even if they're purchasing new items, it's a temporary fix. They want more. The narcissist isn't able to heal the trauma from their childhood. More and more people have got this understanding and are healing the wounds, but someone higher up on the spectrum doesn't see there's anything wrong with them or their behaviour. And in fact, they may tell you there isn't, and that it's everybody else's fault. They may seem less narcissistic, but are they? If they are the covert narcissist, the shallow ways they viewed themselves have changed. It becomes difficult for them to hide their traits. They have more destructive tendencies and become depressed and anxious and suffer with loneliness. I heard a great analogy from Dr. Todd Grundy when he was talking about older narcissists. And he was using the analogy of an old fighter versus a young fighter, where the younger one has youth and energy on their side. The older one has experience. They might be a bit slower to react, but they have seen more. They have more experience that allows them to anticipate the action. So in a similar way, the narcissists can do more with less. They're experienced and effective manipulators, and therefore are able to develop new techniques. Just because they're older, it doesn't make them any less effective. And if they are a parent or a family member, they have a bank of knowledge built up ready to trigger you. They have knowledge and age on the side, and in truth, they actually might only need one person in their life that they have total control over. This trauma runs very deeply, and even after the narcissist has passed, their children or relations will suffer from guilt and shame, and possibly feelings of abandonment that the elderly narcissist has put upon them. They maintain the levels of manipulation, and they may even use their own mortality as a way of manipulating their own children. You might feel sorry for them. You might want to believe that they will change, or believe they might even acknowledge that they either do love you or they're going to apologise for the damage that they've caused to you. You might have got through and survived your childhood by having one key person in your life who saved you, showed you some attention, or saw your uniqueness. Their motivation and mindset doesn't change. Perhaps they change from overt to covert and covert to overt. They might have realised that they needed to adapt their behaviour. After all, a tantrum coming from a 75-year-old isn't as tolerable as it is coming from a younger person. And that's not the only thing. The tales of how they were treated might have worked years ago, but they don't work now. And they particularly don't work with older people who can see through their manipulative behaviour. Well, Caroline Myss calls this leading with the wound. And it's the, did you hear what happened to me? And they wear it like a badge of honour. It's like a crutch that they won't let go of. But as they get older, people start to question why they are still using this 30, 40 years later. And as they get older, it gets harder for them to meet people. And the age of people who they can influence is a younger generation. And they have to wonder if it's acceptable to be hanging around with them. Sadly, their body and mind abandon them. They become average. They feel bitter and alone. They are no longer in their prime, and they retreat deeper into themselves. They are still trapped in their childhood wounds. And sadly, they may never acknowledge them or want to do anything about them. They still can't see there's anything wrong with them or their behaviour. And as long as the mechanisms that they've put in place are still protecting them, that is it. They are happy. The overt might mellow, perhaps gaining a little bit of a realistic view on life, but many don't. They still live in their fantasy world. They still manipulate people. The overt narcissist seems to be able to self-soothe and manage their own needs a little better, or even learn to self-regulate some of their emotions. The vulnerable, covert, seem to come out of this differently. They were covert, and now in old age, their lack of self-awareness comes to the surface. And it might be a shock for their children. They demand attention, not able to empathise. They become needy and anxious. They might triangulate their children to gain more attention or gain more power and control over the family. And it depends on how awake you are to this behaviour, and if this is a parent of yours and you have siblings, how they perceive this behaviour. Just in the same way you can't tell someone in an abusive relationship that that's what they're in, you can't unmask the ageing narcissistic parent to the other children, to your siblings, if they're not ready to hear or see. If you've experienced this type of abuse in a romantic relationship, you may recall having to go through a process of understanding their dynamics, the fake reality. And you may have to do this with the parent as well, realising that the person who had sole responsibility of you, who was there to protect you, was in fact your abuser. And your siblings may have to do the same thing in their own time. The golden child is as much a victim to this type of abuse as the scapegoat. And anyone who partook in this abuse, and because some family units encouraged baiting of one child, may need to heal for the role they played in that. If you've realised that this is your family dynamic, it is time to let go of the trauma, forgive them for what they have done. It's a bit like in the Garden of Gethsemane, Jesus said, "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do." Your family were repeating a pattern from their childhood, hurt by the trauma they experienced. It doesn't make it right, but now is your chance to break that cycle. Once you can heal your wounds and your original wounds, they have no power over you. As much as you may want to help them unless they can see what they're doing is wrong, you can't, and they remain trapped children. You can choose who is in your life and how they affect your energy, how you allow them to interact, but you can't force anyone into healing. You're only responsible for your own healing. Hope you found this video helpful. If you'd like to find out about working with me on a one-to-one basis, then please visit my website reviveyoursoul.co.uk or drop me an email, info@reviveyoursoul.co.uk. I'll put some links to resources in the description box, and also the links to both my books, Finding Lily and the A to Z of Emotional Abuse. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and I'm sending you loads and loads and loads of love.